hardship. My sister and I tried to work our way through the loophole when we would turn our backs to the TV saying, we're not watching, but didn't cut it with my parents. Now I know that Jesus had a tougher time than I did, up there on the cross. But as a kid, no TV? Really? But the good news is the fasting worked. Every time I wanted to watch TV or eat candy, I thought of Jesus and his overwhelming love for us. But then, in 7th grade, something magical happened. A truly life-changing event. My mom said that I did not always have to give something up to fast and Lent. I could instead take something on. Like reading, I said? Yes, you can read as long as it's a religious book. So I went into our den. Remember when we had dens before we had family rooms? Used to call them dens? I went into our den and I picked up this little book. It's called Krause, The Story of the Bible. Well, I just loved reading it. And I can remember every night I would read some. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Old Testament, but I still remember the night that I was sitting on my bed reading a story from the Old Testament, and I found God. I'd always believed, but it was the very first time that I truly felt the presence of God. And it began a lifelong love affair. Reading transformed me. And that is what the gospel reading today is all about. This is a unique day in the life of the church. It's the last Sunday of Epiphany. Remember Epiphany, that season when we celebrate the manifestation of Christ to all people? The incarnation of God's Son from Christmas? Epiphany ends on this, the day of Transfiguration, when Jesus goes up on the mountain and God proclaims the divinity of Jesus. God says, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." And from that moment, Jesus turns and begins his journey to Jerusalem, to death, to the resurrection of Easter Sunday. Jesus is transfigured, or metamorphosed in Greek. Now, this short little story of Matthew is filled with boulders of wisdom and truth. But today, there is one message that I want to point out, and it concerns one of our favorite apostles, Peter. Here we have yet another amazing story of the faith of Peter. Don't you love him? Yes. With all of his bumbling, God still used Peter to build his church. That gives me hope for my own redemption. Anyway, here is Peter up on the mountain with Jesus while Jesus is being transfigured. His face is shining. His clothes are dazzling white. And then Moses and Elijah show up. They haven't been to earth in centuries. I mean, what would you say? What would you think? What would you do? And I love Peter's reaction. He starts talking. He decides to do something. "Let me build you some dwellings, Lord. One for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for you. Let me make you a tent, a place." In the midst of this awe, of this miracle, this transcendent glory, Peter starts to do things, to talk. And we don't know why for sure. Maybe it was to prolong their visit. Or maybe it was to make sense out of this mind-blowing event and turn it into an everyday event. Something that Peter could control. Something that Peter could understand. Now I can relate with Peter. My husband and I went up to the Winter Classic, the NHL Winter Classic in Cotton Bowl over the New Year's Day. This is where the hockey teams play an outdoor game in the Cotton Bowl. There's the Dallas Stars versus the Nashville Predators. And here we were, 85,000 people packed to the rafters. Now, I imagine there were a few thousand fans for the opposing team, the Nashville Predators, but really all you could see was a sea of victory green for the Dallas Stars. I have never been in a stadium, even University of Michigan, where it was overwhelmingly one team fans in the stadium. And so here it is, the Dallas Stars score, and as one, over 80,000 people stand up and we cheer. And we all know the words of the Dallas Stars cheer. We all know the hand movements. It was amazing. And so what I do, what any of us would do in 2020, I whip out my phone to take a picture, to document it, to make sure that I'm taking it, framing it well, focusing the lens, taking the picture. Now I will tell you that the picture turned out, okay. But when I put my phone away, I realized I missed it. I missed the moment. I wasn't really present. I missed being with all of these people. I was like Peter, being too busy to just be in the moment. And I wonder what God was thinking when he interrupted Peter. Was he laughing? Really, Peter? Yet again? Was he frustrated? Peter, when are you going to get it? Was he angry? Was he mad? We don't really know. We just know that God interrupted Peter. And while he's still talking, God tells Peter to be quiet. Be still. Stop. To take time to listen to Jesus. Listen to him! Exclamation mark. God commands. And that is what Lent is all about. Taking the time to be still and listen. To turn with Jesus to our sights on Jerusalem, to his death, resurrection, and ascension. To the divinity of this baby that was born in a humble manger. It is only 40 days in our year, this season of Lent. And by the way, my parents never told me this, but Sundays are feast days. You do not fast. It truly is only 40 days. And Lent starts this Wednesday. And I am praying that you can set apart this season to be time of listening to Jesus. A time when you can be still and not be busy building tents. Now we're offering some ways to do that here at Christ Church. And the first one is by having everybody read this book, Holy Longing, together. And in fact, we're not even going to read this whole book. We're only going to read half of it, 5 chapters. And some of the folks in the parish have already begun reading this book, and they have said that it is life-changing. That it has deepened their faith. That it has helped them to better understand their purpose and the identity. That it has helped them to be better Christians individually, in community, in church. This highly rated book, I believe, will be more than worth your time in reading these 5 chapters. We've ordered you some books from the office, or you can buy one from your favorite bookstore or Amazon. But since we know that we grow our faith, learn the best when we're in community, we have initiated some small groups. And in those small groups, we will have some time for fellowship, for prayer, and for discussing the book together. Now, we already have some groups formed. You can see them in your bulletin. We have some cards out. If there is a date and time that doesn't work for you, just let us know. We have some other folks who have volunteered to host and facilitate, but would love to put some additional groups together. But I would really love it if we could all be part of a small group for just 5 meetings between now and Easter and read this book, Holy Longing. And like my transformation when I took on reading it, I pray that you too will be transformed. Now there is one other activity that I would like us to do during Lent. I would love it if we all gave something up for Lent. And wouldn't it be cool if we all gave the same thing up? What do you think? Wouldn't that be fun to know we're all giving the same thing up? Help hold each other accountable? So the staff and I got together and we decided that it would be awesome if wine for Lent. W-H-I-N-E. I'm not that mean. What if we all give up whining? Wouldn't that make us a better person? A better Christian? Would you like to do that? Give it up together? Isn't that cool? So we have for you wine glasses. Out in the narthex, or if you're going out through the bell tower out there, every time you whine, put some money in your wine glass. Okay? Now it doesn't have to be $5, but put some money in your wine glass, and you'll notice that there's a really big wine glass out there. Bring your wine glass and fill that big wine glass, and at the end of Lent, we will donate all that money to feed my sheep. Now, that is not a good excuse to whine. You cannot say, I'm whining for a good cause, I'm donating money to feed my sheep. You can whine on Sunday. But what do you think? Should we do it? Let's have some fun with it. You are behind me. By reading and fasting, we can move into a holy and meaningful Lent, looking with great joy towards the resurrection of Easter Sunday. As Jesus said, do not be afraid. Get up. We can do this together.